Welcome to Left Coast Live. It is Wednesday, August 14th. I am your host, Dieter McBusiness, joined as always by Stat Pat, stateless patriot of the Central Valley, California. We are Left Coast Lefties talking to you about the horse race of national politics, as well as getting down to the nitty gritty of campaign life. To that end, we are bringing in for the second time a special guest, the progressive American
Yeah.
Connor is here to educate us on any and all things Midwest. This guy knows more about Midwest politics than anyone you have ever met in your entire life.
Big time.
Well,
And
I wouldn't necessarily say I would know more than anybody else, but I do know a little bit with the connections in my local community. But thank you again for having me on.
well,
Of
you must be
course.
thrilled with the Tim Walz pick. Well, let's touch on that really quick. It seems like, based on the polling data, and we'll get into it really quick, but indeed, the radiation effect of picking a guy from Minnesota has seemed to trickle over to Wisconsin and also to Michigan. And the Harris ticket is looking particularly strong in those two states. Do you think that has anything to do with Tim Walz being on the ticket, or do you think that's just a natural, organic growth of a smart pick in general?
I don't think those things are necessarily mutually exclusive. In many cases, you saw an increase in motivation among lefties or liberals and independents after Joe Biden dropped out and Kamala Harris joined the race because it was a younger candidate, a much stronger, more forceful vision, I think. So I think some of this is genuine, like general momentum behind Kamala Harris and having an alternative candidate to Joe Biden. But the other thing is, like you said, Tim Walz definitely is a very useful, very poignant political figure in that they've chosen a Midwestern Democratic governor who is not only very strong and has a very nice personal story as an attack dog. One of the things I think we mentioned the last time I was on is that from the perspective of being able to attack your political opponents, Democrats have in the past failed to do so. I don't think that's the case with Tim Walz. By getting a candidate, a vice presidential running mate that is really capable of fighting back and calling Trump out for what he is, I think Kamala Harris has made one of the best political decisions she could have made in terms of her campaign. But the
I-
other thing I think is it's just Trump being incredibly unpopular and a flailing old man.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. We've been just reeling over what an astounding pick. Like it like we've been talking about how just like we're just not used to the Democrats actually fighting back and making good, smart, strategic political decisions and whatnot. So like this is, I mean, thinking about it more and more, even Bernie Sanders didn't have this kind of fight in him. Walls directly going after Republicans for their hypocrisy and their very unpopular positions and just for being weird, which catches on for a reason. Like Bernie Sanders was just way 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 too nice, which is fine. It's a great trait to have, and I admire the hell out of him for it. But fearless with it, who's also a good speaker and delivers a message that resonates on a broad scale.
So, to give people an idea of what I was talking about, in terms of looking at the polls, Connor, let's do a little crash course real quick for our viewers, because I think the way I've seen polls analyzed makes me think that most people don't know how to look at them. So let's take a look at Wisconsin real quick, because this is what I was talking about with the radiation effect that the Walz pick might have had. Is okay, so right now it's Harris plus 3.5 is the average. I don't care about the average. When I go, oh, let me show you. So it's plus 3.5 there for the average, right? I don't care about the average. I want to know the most recent poll. These things are changing by the day at this point. We are inside of the 1/4 mark left in the season. And that's why when I see the Bullfinch group, registered voters 500 sample size, I'm like, okay, Harris +9, that looks really great, but it's only a sample size of 500. And I haven't really heard of the Bullfinch group. But then I scroll down, I see the New York Times at 661 and Harris +6. I'm starting to think Wisconsin is bye-bye to the GOP this season.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past the GOP to try and push in the opposite direction, but I would definitely agree. I said this in my video when I initially responded to Kamala Harris's entry into the race. Realistically, she only needs Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and at
Right.
that point, she's won. I think the Midwest is still very much key to her victory if she's going to win against Trump, and I think I don't want to curse us or jinx us at any point here. But it definitely looks like, at least in the case of Wisconsin, the momentum has definitely shifted. The other thing I think people need to remember about polls, and you've said it exactly right, Dieter, and that is polls are a measure of a specific point in time. Without accurate tracking of the long-term standards of a poll or a campaign, you're not really getting a larger depiction of what's going on. So if you see the 538 polling average showing, Kamala Harris leading by 3.5%, that's great and all, but that's usually based off the weighting of the multiple polls that they have on hand. And like you said, they need more recent polling, they need more large scale polling. And let's be real, that is very, very rarely what's going on the news. It's this poll says she's up 3.5%. This one says 2.2%. It doesn't give you a full depiction of what's going on unless you look at long-term tracking polls.
But
And
I
those are
always
few and
say
far between.
go most recent, always look at the sample size, and always look at RV versus LV, registered voters versus likely voters. In this election, actually, that disparity won't matter as much because I think we're going to see incredible turnout, just like we did in 2020. By the way, 2020 was the best turnout we've had in like 100 years or something. Did you know
Yep,
that?
that's correct.
Yeah, it was
Yes,
like
yeah, that was
60.
actually one of the weirdest
Big time. Big
things because
time.
I always complained about like polling averages and like things like that, like saying, "Hey, we get very low voter turnout. We get very low voter turnout here." And then the first presidential election I'm able to vote in, and it becomes a historic level of participation. So I was like, well, I can't say that as much.
Okay, so Michigan, 3.5. We just did Wisconsin, right? So this is
Yes.
Michigan, 3.5 point average. Bullfinch Group, same poll. New York Times, same poll. Now you also got to look at, is it 3-way or 5-way or 2-way in terms of the polling? Not all these polls are equal, right? So Harris from the Bullfinch Group, it's 3 days young, or it's 3 days later than the New York Times poll. So just take Harris is +6, and Kennedy's at 7%. So that's nice. That makes me feel good about Michigan. I think it's high noon is Pennsylvania. I think Trump's down to Pennsylvania or bust. But we'll talk about that in a second. New York Times, Harris +5. This was a little weird. Harris was +5 in a 5-way, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it's actually a 6-way. And then she was +1 in the same pool with registered voters. So that was a registered voters versus likely voters disparity. And it was New York Times, which makes me a little bit fishy about those numbers. But it was interesting how Wisconsin is actually a wider margin for Harris and Walz right now than is Michigan. So that's Michigan. And then for the big dog, Pennsylvania, 2.1% average. Who cares? Let's get down to the Bullfinch in the New York Times. 5-way, Harris is +4, according to the Bullfinch Group. That ended on the 11th, which was only 3 days ago. And then you've got the New York Times, which was 5 days ago, Harris +2. I mean, she has all the momentum. Here's where I think this race could change. Number one, less likely, because I think the party and the city is ahead of it. But at the DNC convention next week, if things get nasty and we have Chicago 68 repeat in Chicago 24, maybe that causes some drama that leads to some unforeseeable places politically. I think even if it does get messy, it's not going to really matter long term. Everyone's showing up to beat the bully of Donald Trump. Also, not likely, but maybe more likely than that, is Kamala Harris somehow choking on the debate stage and Trump coming up with one of the all time upsets in American presidential debate history. And then that has a huge seismic shift in the momentum. But again, not likely. I don't think there is anything that one could predict that will happen to change this race. I think only something that no one could see coming can change this race.
Well, I'd knock on wood there just to make sure that Trump
Right.
doesn't actually manage to pull something out of a hat or something. But I will just say, generally speaking, debates, with the exclusion of the Joe Biden versus Donald Trump debate in this last election, it really they really don't change polling all that much. But unless you've got something extreme like Joe Biden choking in that debate versus Trump. The real thing is that most people who are have any political opinion and are going to be voting accordingly have already kind of made up their mind. One of the things that has been relatively consistent here is that if you lean for Trump, you're probably going to vote for Trump. There's not much that's going to change your mind. One of the things that is consistent also is if you lean towards Biden, you're probably voting for Harris. Period. The issue is finding the people who were hesitant to even vote at all because they felt like their concerns about the candidate weren't being addressed, or issues such as Israel-Palestine weren't being addressed. And now that there's a new candidate that at least seems more inclined to hear those issues and, not just rely on the incumbency advantage, I think that's what's pushing Harris towards winning in November. Granted, it's 2.5 months out, but for somebody like Donald Trump, who, for all intents and purposes, should be doing a lot better, especially because he's had so much time to craft a message, this is not something that you just recover from immediately. It's going to take time for him to even come close to a recovery, which means all the more time for Harris and Walz to really put him back in his place.
Okay, the other 3 states that we're waiting on polls for, and I'm not going to show you the numbers there because it can get a little confusing. Arizona, Nevada, Georgia. We haven't gotten a poll from any of those states for 11 days, and the ones that did come out were kind of weaker polls, and they all showed Trump actually within the margin of error anyway. So those are the polls that I'm really excited to take a look at, because let's go over to the map and talk about your prediction for the Electoral College versus mine, and we'll get StatPat to weigh in here if his computer holds up on us.
Yeah, technology is always fun to deal with. So right now I have on my end, just trying to pull up my stuff right here, I have the Democrats holding Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. I think with just how the momentum has shifted and how those states have even been, like, at the very least, lean Democratic, in that, I would say those 3 states are basically the ball game. So long as Harris holds on to these 3, she's good.
Right.
Arizona, I'm more inclined to say, is going to shift towards Harris than I am with Georgia, because the Cook Political Report that I sent in the chat, they have Georgia tied both in the 3-way race and the head-to-head race. So Georgia, I would say I'd be maybe a little more pessimistic and give that to Trump. But in the cases of Arizona, I would give that to Harris just as a lean. So I have it at right now 281 for the Democratic Party and 257 for the Republicans. So North Carolina and Nevada to Trump, and then Georgia as well.
You have Carolina. You have Carolina to Trump.
Yep.
And then you have. What am I doing? These ads are really annoying. You have Georgia going where?
I have Georgia going to Trump just out of pessimism, and Arizona to Biden, and then Nevada to Trump. But I would be clear here, that's just based off of my own, skepticism in myself. Just because I do not want to, knock on wood here and assume momentum is going to continue when I don't have reason to believe that will be the case. It is also possible that, if she flubs the debate, that in Pennsylvania could shift. But right now with the momentum, like I said earlier, I don't think the debate's going to change all that much.
All right. So this is your map. My map is much more optimistic. I actually see Nevada and Arizona both going blue. They'll be maybe close. I actually don't think they will be. I think these new polls that we're going to get out from Arizona, Nevada, and Georgia are going to give you confidence in my map. And that's the big three right there. That leads to her getting north of 300, and that's a big statement. It's a statement win if she gets north of 300, and we start talking about, you know, maybe getting the DC sweep of both the House and the Senate. Now, the North Carolina poll that just came out says that it's even, and that was a YouGov poll. So YouGov is actually pretty well respected. I am going to say that North Carolina is going to go blue. Now we're up to 319. This is my optimistic set.
I will say,
baby.
I will say the YouGov. I have not been able to take a look at the YouGov one, unfortunately, due to work getting in the way a little bit before stream. But one of the things that I will say is with the Cook Political Report, there is reason to believe that Harris will do well. Right now, if you go on the three-way race, including RFK Jr., the Cook Political Report has Harris ahead by 2 points, and if in a head-to-head, it is within 1. So to some extent, I wouldn't be beyond like saying North Carolina going to Harris. It's just until there's more momentum, until there's, maybe a poll or two saying she's leading by 2-3%, that I'd be like inclined to say, hey, North Carolina's going for Harris. Granted, she doesn't need the North Carolina to win. Like I said before, it's the Midwest that's key. But if we can, send a clear message on November that demonstrates that not only is Trump not a good candidate to run for president, but his entire movement is unpopular, and have a map like what you are presenting right now, I think not only will that assist us in the long term in terms of like keeping the House and Senate, but also send the message that ultimately this is a fundamentally un-American ideology. It's an ideology of people who will talk loud and proud about the good of the American people, who will talk loud and proud about protecting America for Americans, but won't do a damn thing when it comes to mass pollution or the EPA ignoring dangerous signs of chemicals like ethylene oxide. So as far as I'm concerned, this poll, this map would be awesome. It would be absolutely wonderful, and it is something we should absolutely push for. Push till election day. Nothing is taken for granted.
Do you think this is possible at all?
Not with Ron DeSantis' movement right now. Florida, I think, is a little harder. Texas,
a little bit too far gone.
This is the dream right here, isn't it?
Yeah. That would be.
This is the dream right here.
I think at this point, I think Texas is more likely than Florida.
No, not if the polls are I looked at it right. So let's talk about Texas and Florida. But let's get into some summary data, because it's easy to get lost. The way people talk about polls, I've noticed, is very confusing. So Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Wisconsin, Harris +9. Michigan, Harris +6. Pennsylvania, Harris +3. That's all she needs to win. Gravy train, Arizona, Nevada, Georgia. Okay? No good polls have come out since August 3rd. A lot has happened since then. I think when those new polls come out, we're going to be talking about that bigger number that I referenced earlier, which is 320 for Harris. That's the one that that's the one that I was talking about. 320 to Republicans, 218. Unless, of course, North Carolina does continue to flip, then it's 336 Democrats, 202 Republicans. Now, here are the big ones, the big sleepers, all right? The giants, Texas and Florida. So you're wrong, StatPat. According to my data, Trump +7 is the most recent poll, and that actually came out on August 13th, but it was a really small sample size. It was only 400 likely voters. It was from a company called ActiveVote, which doesn't have
in Texas.
Yeah, in Texas. And there was no.
Only 400.
The most important part is there's no RFK in the poll either, so it's basically meaningless.
Yeah, so if anything, he would take a lot more in that state, like than most red states, to be honest.
And then so you look at Florida as the more likely one that could be the biggest upset of the night. and that is Trump +2, according to a Florida Atlantic University poll conducted 3 days ago. So
Hmm.
I think if the next round of polls a week from now, after the convention, we could start talking about Democrats 336 and Republicans 202. Oh, no, that's not right. That's not the right number. Sorry, go back. 319. Democrat, that's the right number. 319 to 219. That's the right number.
So basically, what we're saying here is Kamala Harris has the best shot that we've ever seen so far in this race,
Yeah,
as of
I
now.
would. If we were to go with Dieter's projections, then yeah, I would definitely say that at the very least we are in a much better position than we were a few weeks ago and
Oh,
years
without a
ago.
doubt. Oh yeah,
Um, I will say though, I think people need to be careful not to assume that this is because Democrats are doing like well in general, like Democrats as a party. I think it speaks
yeah,
deeply to the incredible unpopularity of something as
Yes.
toxic and as crude and as criminal. And no, he can't sue me because I said that because he is a criminal. Uh,
yeah,
as Donald Trump. The fact of the
yeah,
matter is this is a massive screw up by the Republican Party. They did not anticipate the Democrats actually switching around and maneuvering like a political party should, which is to pursue political power for their constituents, even if it
yeah,
means, somebody, an incumbent, having to be thrown under the bus. But the other thing I think we need to reiterate again and again is that there will be other people, like, let's say Trump loses. Let's say tomorrow's the election and we finally get rid of him and he's done. He's never going to run again, hopefully. I really hate writing about him. Uh,
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I thoroughly hate writing about him.
Of
Let's say
course.
he's gone. He has inspired an entire subsection of the right to think in a way that is based almost entirely on negativity and aggression and hostility. So one of the things I think people need to remember is there will be other people like Trump. Like Harris wins and she goes on to 2 terms or whatever.
Yep.
There will be people like them.
Yep.
They will continue up and down the ballot. They will insist that they have the mandate of the people. But if this election goes in the way it looks like it's going to go, people need to remind them that they have never, and I mean never, had the mandate of the people. He wasn't popular when he was elected in 2016. He lost by nearly 3 million votes in terms of the popular vote. He wasn't popular in 2020 because he let nearly 500,000 Americans die. He wasn't popular in this election either. His unfavorability ratings by 538 show him consistently disliked by the American people. Period. So
That's right.
it needs to be emphasized over and over and over again. The Trumpist movement does not appeal to the people. It builds on the lack of trust that the people have in their institutions. So if we're going to prevent another group of people like Trump coming forward or Trumpists going forward, we need to build strength in those institutions, trust in those institutions, and actually look to a much more progressive, more aware, and flexible political future.
I
Yeah,
think that's starting to talk like a winner. That's what I would frame it as,
that's
just
right.
in
Yeah,
terms of like street talk.
couldn't
Like
agree more.
it's just like talking like a winner. The score matters. It's about punching past the target. I think you can sell it as like, hey, if we do well in October and early November, and we bring it home in November, Thanksgiving's going to taste awfully good. But
Big time.
what you're saying though, Prague, is the most important thing that you're saying long term that's resonating with me is what I'm getting to in one of my future episodes. IRM, isolate, radiate, mitigate. That's how we treat MAGA for the foreseeable future, because it's like a cancer that you can't cut out. You have to use radiation to reduce the extent to which it affects the body being American society. So your point about who's going to be the next Trump is incredibly important and should motivate people to rally their friends and their family to vote, because the more points we put up on the board, the quicker we can extinguish the flame of white trash ignorance that is MAGA America.
Yeah,
And I'll
No,
just. Oh, sorry, Stephead. Go ahead.
oh no, like yeah, just to build off what you both are saying, and just to get apologies out of the way, I need a new memory card, a new graphics card, new GPU entirely. Needs to be updated, and that'll save me a whole lot of hassle. I ended up closing out OBS entirely and just ended the stream, and so it's just all neither now. But that being said, um, yeah, no, it's going to be very, very rough for Trump and MAGA loyalists after Trump is defeated. Hopefully, is defeated, because a lot of them just are they just are not engaged in reality whatsoever. It's just all loyalty to Trump and owning the libs. Like they don't give half a flying shit about anything else because a lot of them are retired boomers that just sit around, scroll Facebook all day, watch Fox News, and just have their talking points fed to them. And it's really telling that um, a lot of these Republicans act as if like Democrats are all in lockstep and are basically waiting for marching orders, and because they think that because they have the same ideology, they are all like they act as like a monolith. Basically, they're waiting for marching orders. They're waiting for talking points because they don't bother researching anything. They don't bother fact checking anything. They don't bother uh, admitting when they're wrong about anything because facts are completely irrelevant to them, like in general. So a lot of them think that like, oh, the Democratic Party, the elites on high gave their marching orders. Okay, it's Kamala Harris now. It's Tim Walz now. You like Kamala. You like Tim Walz, and it just speaks to the psyche that has the psyche among MAGA, which has been carried through the past 8 years. And once Trump is gone, I really don't know how they're going to reel from that. And it really interests me because like he's not going to be here forever. There is going to be someone eventually that replaces him. But like it's like this lie has been these lies have been perpetuated for years and years and years at this point. When it all comes falling down, when it all comes crumbling apart, it's none of them are going to know how to handle it. Not even a lot of the pundits, because they've been telling themselves these lies for years as well. Um, it's a fascinating psychological phenomenon, and I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Did you want to talk about this, Prague?
Yeah, so this is one of the more recent, and I didn't get it to go too in depth into it, but this is something I think is really illustrative of what we've been talking about here.
I'm only going to
And
put it on with the ones with the third party candidates, okay?
I think that's a fair thing. RFK, I don't think is dropping out. Although I did see a headline before we started that he did actually try to get a meeting with the Harris campaign in the hope of getting a position in her cabinet should she win the presidency. So he's kind of seeing the writing on the wall. So it would be interesting to see if he drops out or anything like that, what that would mean for the race, because it seems like he's eating away at Trump's support, which is something I think people were worried about him potentially eating away at Harris's. But in terms of where the race has been, it has changed immensely. As you can see on there, the May 2024 momentum, it was all Trump, all of it. Now that's not the case. Only one of the areas they're tied, and that's Georgia. And in only one state, Nevada, Trump is leading by 5 points. Now, granted, this is still an encapsulation of our current state and time. It could change. But the fact that Trump, a man who literally sat in the Oval Office and was president for 4 years, is unable to motivate his base and motivate people to go against Harris and really build a strong attack shows fundamentally that he has no idea what he's doing. They don't know what to do about her. The whole Tim Walz swift boating thing that they pulled should have worked, but because they're really bad at it and they chose the wrong person to do it too, it floundered. The fact of the matter is, this doesn't look like a campaign that's really competitive now that there's somebody who's actually pushing in an effective way, actively appealing
Right.
to the people. And
Yes.
Trump's just not that guy. He will never be that guy because he never was.
Exactly. Yeah, it was always about himself from the beginning. Like he cannot adapt. I mean, it just whether it's the flailing press conference that he gave like just completely out of nowhere, or him complaining and whining endlessly about crowd sizes, or flailing and claiming that Kamala Harris's I guess departure off of like coming off of a flight and meeting on the tarmac with a crowd of people, that was AI generated or whatever. He, he's lost his fucking mind. He doesn't know how to adapt to this changing environment. It's so much to the point where he is now regularly like fantasizing about Biden coming back and taking over at the Democratic National Convention, saying like, I want it back. I want to debate Trump again." It's like, no, this is what Trump wants, because he can't handle the fact that like all this time and effort and energy and money was spent running against Joe Biden, and now he's not anymore. And not to mention, he's been living in the past for fucking ever now. Like his whole campaign is just rehashing talking points from 2020. It's, I mean, it's very, very encouraging. This is probably like, I would argue it's like probably the biggest thing that we have going for us now. I mean, yeah, it wouldn't have happened without Kamala Harris stepping in, taking the reins, and picking Tim Walz, but the reaction from Trump and the Republicans over this is just fueling the momentum on the Democratic side.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of that, I think, as much as Trump is, crazy, he's always been crazy.
Mhm.
I mean, this is the guy who demanded to see Obama's birth certificate, and when was presented with it, he's like, "That's not the real birth certificate. I'll get you the real one." He's always been crazy,
Typical.
but yeah, it's shifting the goalpost as much as he
Of
can,
course, always.
always. But the other thing I think is fundamentally, he doesn't really have a campaign strategy. His attitude was to deal with the fact that Joe Biden was older and he coasted on grievance alone. And, that's just not
Yes.
working. There was a new poll which contained about 1,700 likely voters by Quinnipiac. I can never pronounce that properly.
Mhm.
That showed in Pennsylvania, he's behind Harris by 3 points. That's a relatively new poll with a decent sample size that shows, again, he's losing momentum. This is a
Yeah,
guy
because he
who
was
really
ahead
could.
before. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I'll send it in the group chat, Dieter. But
Sure.
it's the most recent polling that New York Times has available. This is fundamentally about Trump's failure as a candidate, as a political figure. He can't deliver
Yeah.
on policy. He can't deliver when it comes to, running a serious campaign. If I was a Republican, like, head honcho, I'd be furious that we put this guy on the ticket again. Like I said, even before Joe Biden dropped out of the race, or even before the debate, that, the fact that they chose somebody like they threw Nikki Haley to the side just shows how little they understand about the changing realities of America, which is, if you're going to run from the right, you got to run from the center right, not from the far right. And Trump represents the furthest right you can get, I think, there's no way. There's just no way
So
you can continue with this.
this is why people
Well,
really
yeah.
shouldn't get excited about, just again back to how to read polls, especially when there's 5-way action going on, 6-way
Hmm.
action in some states. But don't get excited until this is plus 4 or 5 is my
Yes.
attitude.
No. Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
get excited. Don't get excited until this is plus 4 or 5.
Yeah. Because
And
Biden
I
was
am
even up.
shocked to see that Pennsylvania is at plus 5 here, because according to my notes, I've got Harris at plus 3 but that was 2 days ago. So I don't know. This is an internal poll that they did, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. I
Okay,
think this
so
one's an
that's
internal poll.
huge. So that's huge growth. But it also has North Carolina growth. It has Wisconsin is just out of control according to the poll that I saw. I had Harris at plus 9.
Mm.
So I'm sure that's more like 6, 7, whatever. But she's got the Rust Belt sweep. Now it's a matter of, can we get, really the crushing blows of Georgia, Arizona. And if this is true about Nevada, Trump plus 5, That's really surprising if that's true,
Yeah.
because Trafalgar did a poll on August 8th that had Trump +3, and Trafalgar was really hard right. Um, so I was surprised to see Nevada +5, but whatever. It's the least important state up there. And,
Yeah, out of all
you
of
know,
them.
so, I mean, I think we're looking good. But again, Cobra Kai, punch past the target. Don't
Hmm.
just punch to the target, punch past the target.
Punch
Win by
through
a
them. Yeah.
million. Blow. This is going to be Super Bowl 48, Seahawks 45, Broncos led by Peyton Manning, who's a Republican, 8.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you believe? Isn't
It's
that disappointing? Isn't that disappointing? You knew Brady was. I don't think Brady still is. They just want their tax cut, but it's a huge
yeah.
disappointment.
What a way to fizzle out your career, Peyton Manning, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've been talking the past couple weeks during our streams, Connor, about just how encouraging it is, and just how because I've even like been cutting my stuff up into shorts, and just posted one today just about how just a month ago it was just doom and gloom. It was Biden's not going. He's too stingy. He's too stubborn. There's no signs of him dropping out. There's mounting pressure, but Trump had just got shot, and it looked really really cool and whatnot. And so it was like, what can we do? And not to mention the Supreme Court thing, the immunity, whatever the hell the ruling that they made. So everything was just looking like it was all going in Trump's favor. But like Biden finally did it. He made the choice to drop out, and then just everything changed, and it's still something I've been processing the past month. But like, and I've even brought it up before. But the thing about Trump is like, I've wondered why he's still bothering to even run. Sure, it's an ego thing, and like he's already in it, so he's not going to just completely abandon the race because he just wants to stroke his ego. But he doesn't really exactly gain anything from being president again, because he kind of got what he wanted. He got immunity for his acts as president for the crimes that he committed and whatnot. So to the point where all his cases are completely stalled out, at least the ones where that have to do with his acts as president, and it like he was completely shocked by the decision. So if he's immune for his crimes, and like his goal I think that his goal was to pursue the presidency again, so he can pardon himself and like undergo another constitutional crisis, because why the fuck not? Um, but now he's like in it because like he feels like he has something to prove now that he is flailing and floundering and is down in all the polls. But yeah.
I will say though, I think the thing that needs to be reiterated here is Trump has always had an element of "I'm going to do it because I can"
Yeah,
attitude. Like
literally.
during his presidency, he would make the Secret Service stay at super expensive hotels that were not necessary to his security or to the security of his office. Why? Because he could make a lot of money off of it. He refused to put any
Yeah,
of his assets into a blind trust. Instead, he gave it control to his family members, who he talked about with constantly, and gave many of them positions of power. I mean, Jared Kushner was responsible for bringing peace in the Middle East. Well, great job, Jared. It's worked out real good for everybody. So like this is
yeah,
like it's definitely an ego thing, and I also think it's all fundamentally a kleptocratic thing. He is a
big time.
kleptocrat. He likes
Yeah,
taking resources and money that he can get his hands on because he can get his hands on. It's a cyclical
right.
thing that he holds on to because he is a power hungry egomaniac. That needs to be hit on every single time. You might not
Yeah,
like politicians, but at least a politician can read the writing on the wall and say, "Hey, don't steal stuff from the people or I'll go to jail." With Trump, he's under the impression that jail doesn't apply. Or at the very
yeah,
least he can slow it down till, he can just, dodge out.
Yeah, no, Trump
Well,
is
let's
what
have
you
some.
get when you don't punish a toddler until he's 70.
Let's have some fun then. Do you think Trump will actually ever see jail time? I mean, it sounds like with his immunity case. Because I was watching somebody, another commentator on Morning Joe is doing. I'm trying to do this new series called Morning Bro. It's a lot of work because I got to get up super early, watch Morning Joe, pick out the spots that I want to comment on, which usually are only like 3 or 4 things, and then record it, and then make shorts out of it. It's a whole fucking process. But anyway, when I was
Yeah.
doing it Morning Bro for like Monday, somebody was talking. George Conway was talking about how if Trump doesn't win, then he's going to face legal consequences for a lot of the shit he did both as president and before he was president. Which I'm not sure that's true.
Right.
It's okay. It's really hard to tell with this court because, in many cases, the court has either gone along with Trump's extreme interpretations of the Constitution, or overturned basically every bit of precedent that I studied a little when I was in college. I'm not a constitutional scholar, to be clear, but I did study a little bit of constitutional law when I was pursuing my degree. And one of the things I think that needs to be brought up again and again is that executive privilege and presidential immunity, insofar as they are talked about in the public eye, in the legal eye, in just the political eye, in any way, shape, or form, they are fundamentally implied powers. They are not enumerated in the Constitution. That you won't find those phrases in the Constitution anywhere because they're not there. They're implied to be narrowly tailored to usually something along the lines of something that the president has to do in the pursuit of protecting his country. And right now, it seems to me that if Trump loses, he loses one of the main arguments that he could use in applying the immunity rulings. And that is, many of these things are not presidential acts. Like taking government documents after you've left the office,
That case
after
got
you've
thrown out.
violated the steps. Yeah, yeah. But that's so clear.
Yeah. Yeah. The judge
But
threw it out.
if I'm not
Yeah,
mistaken, they're appealing that one, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I don't think we've seen the last of
But
that
with the
case for
immunity
sure.
ruling, is it going to matter?
Well, it wasn't
Uh,
even ruled on. The
Doesn't
immunity.
matter with
Yeah.
the
No,
immunity
yeah.
ruling. Anything he did as president, the only thing that's going to
Well,
stick to him is stuff that he didn't do that he did when he wasn't president.
Well, I think with that is like the fact that he had documents at his properties after he was out of office, and the fact that he refused to give them up and didn't comply
yeah.
with authorities. They might have something on that because he's not president at that point.
Right.
But when it comes to like actually like having like the documents at his house and bringing them all or sending them all there, like in ordering that as president, there's probably not much they can do about that as long as this immunity ruling stays in place. But like the non-compliance and
Obstruction.
obstruction, big time, they might have something on that there. So maybe, I mean, I know that right
Well,
now,
let's face it.
because of the
That's the
immunity
best
thing.
part. That's the best part of this. The fucking cherry on top of winning this election, if we do, knock on wood.
Yeah.
It's is that he'll face consequences if we'll see resolution, but the system will actually have enough time to process those fucking cases. Because
No,
damned if speed isn't the most problematic part of our criminal justice system.
of
I mean, it
course.
just takes forever.
I
Takes
mean,
forever.
not to mention Trump has just been like his whole strategy regarding all these cases at this entire time has been delay to begin with, and not to mention um, there is there when it comes to the immunity ruling there it we might not even see the last of that either. I mean, not even counting the Democrats and even Biden's um, push for perhaps going over what is or what isn't a presidential act, what is or isn't immunity, I guess you could say, for acts as president. Even that aside, the push from Biden to reform the court, establish a code of ethics, and all that. Um, those things aside, right now they because the Supreme Court ruled on immunity the way it did, presidential immunity, they kicked it back down to a lower court, who I believe right now are undergoing what is or what isn't an official act, as well as unofficial acts. And the ruling is a bit more complicated than that. There is potential official acts, which basically are kind of basically official acts, like with a little wiggle room. So like it was a friggin' terrible ruling that basically like makes presidents above the law, and that's not even really hyperbole. But hopefully the lower courts in deciphering this ruling can actually determine in uh, a hopeful way, for lack of a better phrasing, what is or isn't official acts, and hopefully it's not in Trump's favor.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that real quick, I think
Yeah.
it needs to be reiterated over and over and over again that not only is the rule of law being like put to the test here with Trump and his
Big time,
cases,
yeah.
but the future of American jurisprudence is on the line here. I think I mentioned this last time I was on your show, but there are the two oldest justices on the Supreme Court are Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas,
Yeah.
and I would not be surprised if Clarence Thomas leaves,
Yeah.
if he thinks a Republican is going to win. But if you put someone like Kamala Harris in charge for the next 4 to 8 years, depending
Mhm.
upon if she decides to wield the incumbency advantage,
They'll pull a
you
real
not
escape.
only you not only guarantee a decent and responsible justice will be put on to replace at least one of these guys, but you ensure that some Trump loyalist who is more concerned about personalities than they are about the law don't hold a lifetime appointment. We can actually see long-term change in the favor of our American institutions, of our political institutions that work towards the benefit of the people, not just Harlan Crow and his kleptocratic billionaire friends.
Yeah, and making sure that like an actual term limits are put in place is pretty essential at this point, given what like it because of what you said. I mean, Clarence Thomas staying on the bench, if Kamala Harris wins, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he pulls a Ruth Bader Ginsburg and just sits his ass there,
Yeah.
unless maybe Congress does act and then act a code of ethics, or impeaches his ass because conflicts of interest and corruption and whatnot. Like, there's a whole slew of things that he should be kicked the fuck out for.
Frog, do
They
you
should name an
know
act
what?
called the. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I was gonna
They
say, do
really
you
should
know?
write it. Oh, sorry, we did it twice.
You go first, man. I'll be a gentleman. You go first.
Okay, sorry. It's one of the downsides of these live streams. You don't always know who's
No
talking
worries,
first.
dude.
But I think one of the things that needs to like be put forward is actually an official ethics code, like a binding
Yes.
one, not just this like resolution. It needs to be an actual statute where Congress exercises its authority to balance the court, to maintain a truly ethical judiciary. And I think
Yeah.
they should just name it the Clarence Thomas Act, because everybody knows that this man is corrupt. He is consistent. Like, I don't really care how long the acronym has to be to get to that point. Name it the
Sure.
Clarence Thomas Act, and everybody will know what you're talking about. The idea that people can hold on to power for a lifetime and be
Yeah.
influenced by their billionaire friends and change the law for generations is just an absurdity that needs to be done away with completely. Obviously, we still need some form of a Supreme Court, but let's not like let these guys just assume that they're above the law just because they have a justice's robe on.
Yeah, this should have happened a long, long time ago. I mean, you have nine kings and queens, for lack of a better phrasing, that basically had the final say over like lifelong, like long lasting, impactful court cases. I mean, one of the biggest rulings that really isn't being discussed as much as it should be, and like, not to mention its impacts down the line, is um, the the Chevron doctrine being overturned, and how that's basically like federal agencies can't self-regulate anymore without it being challenged and the court having a final say on what they can or cannot do when it comes to regulation. And that's very, very, very bad news, because all it takes is like one set of people being like, or corporation or whatever, saying like, hey, we don't find this regulation or whatnot fair. And that could be taken to the Supreme Court, and with the way this court is currently shaped, without a doubt, it would favor the corporation because of the overturning of the Chevron doctrine. So yeah,
So
like
Connor,
lots of stuff has to
tell me
change.
Connor, tell me if I'm wrong, but if she does get the DC sweep, if she gets both houses of Congress, then we could just straight up add 3 justices to the Supreme Court.
I mean, it would likely be difficult to say. I think you can constitutionally, Congress can decide to expand the amount of justices that are on the court. The last time I think happened under Grant, as in President Ulysses S. Grant.
The last time it happened was
Late
under Grant, but the last time
1880s.
it was proposed and got serious was under FDR in 1937.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think the thing fundamentally is people seem to think the court and these institutions have always been this way. A lot of it is legal tradition and common law. So, for example, the court's ability to strike down laws in the first place is not enumerated. It was kind of given to the court by itself in Marbury versus Madison. They interpreted the power of interpretation to also mean enforcement, for lack of a better term. So I do think, yes, if the Democrats do commit to something along those lines of expanding the court and binding it to something like the amount of judges, the amount of circuit courts there are, and making sure it's like more about, keeping it up to date, I think they can do that. It might be a little legally dicey. I know there's some people who would disagree with this interpretation, but I think as a matter of, Congress's power, yeah, I definitely think they can do that. It's just a question of whether they will and whether or not it's an even effort.
Appointments? Can they put in state?
That's one I don't. That's one I am not entirely clear on.
Yeah.
From my understanding, is the lifetime appointment would probably require a constitutional amendment, and that's it takes a lot of effort to do that. Even when you get into like statutory things where like the Congress has the power to like influence or change the amount of justices on the court, you may have a challenge where say, hey, where is that constitutional power? If you have somebody or the members of the court themselves objecting to the idea, it might get into a little bit of a gray area. And again, I'm not a constitutional scholar. I'm much more electoral, domestic politics kind of guy. But I think it's certainly a possibility. It's just, I would think right now the more likely scenario is replacing either Samuel Alito or Clarence Thomas should Kamala Harris win this election and have enough political influence to keep the Senate, as Ira Shapiro suggested would happen when he came on my show, or possibly preventing a more right-wing person coming to power. I really think also, just for anybody who is frustrated by the Democratic Party, I understand you and I understand where you're coming from, but realistically, we also have to look at this as a matter of what future do we want for our country? Do we want another 40, 50 years of Clarence Thomas and Donald Trump adjacent people? No, we cannot afford that. The quality of our livelihoods, the quality of our air, water, and food, all of that is dependent upon a strong administrative state, which Project 2025 would basically throw out the window. Yeah. We have to build strong institutions that are able to protect the people and act accordingly. And that means having rulings that consider the well-being of the American people in mind, not just a corporate influence that has been constant since the Republicans took control of the Supreme Court.
You totally get it, dude. Like, you couldn't have said it better than like I couldn't have said it any better, honestly.
That's why I back, StatPat. That's why he keeps.
No, yeah, I like having him here, Dieter. He's great.
The superlative that I opened with, man. I told you, nobody knows more about politics from the Midwest perspective
I
than
mean, you can even
progressive
apply it
American.
broadly to like a lot more than the Midwest. You're not giving them enough credit. I
I
think.
just hope we start talking about winning big and
Yeah,
winning like by 2 touchdowns. Like it's like winning a Super Bowl by 2 touchdowns. You don't win the Super Bowl if you don't win by 2 touchdowns, and that takes the form of the DC sweep. I was doing some. I'm gonna do some more research into like other Senate races and House races because there's some interesting ones
of
going on.
course. I
But
would be looking forward to that. Yeah,
progressives should not get too excited, okay? No matter what, we're probably looking at least another 4 years of incrementalism. Although, with that said, if they're going to go big
hmm
with policy, like the lesson, I think the Obama lesson, I'm hoping that the Obama lesson is, but it might just be my predisposition toward aggressive political tactics and aggressive political strategy is if you have the majority in both houses, when you have your political power, obviously what we've learned from Republicans, when you have your political power, use it. But specifically with Democrats, if you do get the DC sweep, the last time was Obama's first 2 years, you got to go
which is
big.
squandered. Yeah.
You got to go big with it. So it'll be interesting to see what she decides if she wins. Knock on wood. That
hmm
what she'll go with first and foremost. You know what I'd like to see is campaign finance, but that'll never happen.
No, of course.
That'll take
Yeah.
another 30 years at least.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah. Overturn
probably healthcare.
Citizens United.
Probably build on Obamacare. Right, that would be the easiest thing to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't
Public
know.
option.
Public option.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello. Like, please.
Education with Tim Walz. I told
That's gonna be
Connor.
big.
I told Stat Pat last time that I think it would be great if we had Tim Walz at some point get asked, "Would you run for president in 8 years if Kamala gets reelected?" And he would hopefully say no because I want to be as effective and useful of a vice president as President Harris needs. And I would think that if that's the case, it would be like a lefty Cheney, and his pet project would be education, like Cheney's was defense, because
Yeah.
he was a
Yeah,
teacher, obviously.
and preferably with far less crimes, than Cheney.
No,
Um,
I know people always say that. People
Yeah.
always say that, but like, you know what I mean. Like the
yeah, I
that's what
know.
the
I'm
This is
teasing.
the fundamental.
effectiveness, I suppose. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but no, but have you guys ever taken any organizational structure classes, or any of you
I
studied like how power structures can work in organizations, not institutions, not necessarily the government or anything like that, but like other ways of structuring it?
That's along the
I
lines of like sociology, right?
public
Yeah, but
admin too.
yeah, it's applied sociology.
You got. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
applied group problem solving, and I'm just saying that there's so much fucking work to be done that funnels into the White House. You
Yeah.
need as many able-bodied people as you can get. People will return a phone call issued by the vice president.
Mhm.
Okay? It's
Yeah.
not like being called by the president, but for me, if I was vice president, I would be foreign policy. I mean, Secretary of State's like my dream job because I just want to travel all over the world on the government's dime. But, or vice
Yeah.
president, like, could take on any number, like just urban crime. I think the more specific, the better. But it would be interesting to see what he does with education if he does get that opportunity. And do you have any, I don't know if have you thought about, him with whether or not he would run in 8 years, and secondly, do you think he would get asked about that anytime soon? I don't expect him to get legitimately asked about that until after the election.
Yeah, I would say probably I don't think he's gonna get asked that now, unless the Republicans make it a sticking point, like saying, hey, Harris is another, drop in to stop Trump. The real person is the far left, Tim Walz, which would be a dumb strategy on their part.
Yeah.
He strikes me as very down to earth. But I think one of the things that you'll probably see is at least somebody kind of suggesting it, and them just, if they're smart, striking it down very quickly. Tim Walz saying, "Yeah, I'm not running for president. I'm here to support Harris's ticket, and we're going to build a future for America." That kind of thing, I think, would be the best way to go about it, and the most likely way it's going to go. As for Tim
Y-
Walz and education, I would love to see what he would like to do for individual education plan policy. It's K through 12. And I would love to see, helping see if we can see expansions of those required benefits for people with learning disabilities, for people with disabilities in general, because it would be nice to have an administrative state, to have an education system across the board that says every American person has a right to be treated with dignity regardless of their ability. And right now, with Tim Walz, I think that is a serious possibility. And if the Harris presidency really utilizes him effectively, and not pulls a John Adams or whatever, and just kind of sits there and complains about it, I think you'll see a much better future for the country. And to Dieter's point, you do definitely need a lot of that organizational support. In a way, you need an administrative state within the administrative state,
Right?
just in the White House itself. So I really look forward to where this is going. I'm a lot more hopeful for the future, and honestly, I look forward to getting into writing a lot more policy if Harris wins. Knock on wood again. But because we can actually start having an educated conversation that isn't surrounding grievance as much as that gets views.
Yeah.
What do you like better, political marketing wise? What do you like better? Kamala the Chameleon, or like Chameleon Kamala? No, that doesn't sound as good.
Kamala Chameleon.
Kamala the Chameleon, which I think is appropriate. Or Dark Angel Harris.
I think you get some weird. You get a little weird stuff with the Dark Angel Harris because some people are just horrible online.
Yeah.
But this is my marketing strategy right here. Dump Trump. As far as I'm concerned, this is about building a future that actually rids us of this pestilence on our body politic. And so long as we keep making it like, oh, I love this politician or I love this politician, we're going to go back to people saying things like, oh, well, it's just NPCs. Like, no, I want Trump out because he's genuinely threatening my future as an American. And I'm looking for candidates that will actively oppose him and propose a better future. So dump Trump 2024, Kamala Harris for the next 8 years, because, once we got a younger candidate who,
and then it's wide open country, baby.
Yeah, it's at that point it's going to the World Series, not playing like the White Sox or playing like the Cubs today because they lost 6-1. It's really
sucks, man. God, baseball.
that's where we're gonna have to fight over that. I'm gonna take off the tie and just come on down there.
We honestly, we are the true patriots because we don't care about go red team, go blue team, go. We just want shit to get better. We just want shit to change, and we don't want some groveling, grievance fueled, just bumbling, rambling despots
at the same time,
at the head of it all, at the face of all. We've had enough,
I swear to God though, dude, like I need the progressive left. Okay, we're all in the same boat where we're psyched Kamala's winning, hopefully, and maybe she gets the DC sweep. We'll see what she does. As soon as he disappoints, boom, we're going to be honest about it. We're not going to hesitate to criticize, and that's going to be a good thing. That's healthy. Right? People on the right say, oh, you're hating America. Whenever lefties criticize America, it's because we hate America, apparently.
Right.
But
I
actually,
live here
it's
for
'cause,
God's
what
sake.
you said. It's actually what you said, Stat. We're actually the true patriots because we're stepping up and making valid, specific criticisms. That's one thing you should always pay attention to. All you people out there listening, when you're talking politics with someone, notice how general they are. If they're an idiot. They'll be speaking in general terms. If they get specific, then you might have someone that's worth listening to. And if you have someone who says he doesn't know something, boom! Wow, that's someone you can actually talk politics with.
Yeah, because if you just spend all your time worshiping the ball sack of Trump and owning the libs, whatever the fuck that means, or obsessing over what is or what isn't woke, you're just stuck in a bubble. Because that's all Trump does is generalize. So they're going to generalize too.
The Elon thing, the Elon on X the other night, I guess it was 2 nights ago, and the debacle that happened with that. we
insufferable.
tuned in for a hot minute afterwards on another X space of all these ultra conservatives,
Uh-huh.
including who was there? Who was
Alex
the guy
Jones
that
was one of
Alex
them.
Jones, the conspiracy theorist,
He was one of the
and all these other
co-hosts.
ultra conservatives talking about how he did so well. And it's like we were
They
just
have to
listening
say
to the
it.
same thing. And no, but I think
What
some of
really
them
got me?
sounded legitimately. Some of them
What?
sounded authentic, dude. I know when people are acting or like forcing it, and
Yeah.
there were some people that they got on that were like, what we would call maybe normies. Like,
Uh,
they're in a cult, man. They're just gone,
no.
and that's what
Yeah.
back to what you were saying, Connor, where it's like this is never going to end in our lifetime. I did it in one of my pieces, Who Are MAGA episodes. I talked about how in the end zones of the NFL it says end racism, and I say, wouldn't that be nice if that were
Yeah.
possible? There will always be that white trash part of America that we can't get rid of. We can only isolate it, but
Yeah.
hopefully we'll come one step closer to that this election. Go ahead, Stat Pat.
They're so ready, like at any given moment, to just play defense for Trump, no matter like what the actual given circumstances are. Because after that talk with Elon Musk ended, the guy who was putting on the stream, like the head of it, who the first speaker in the X space, the Twitter space, was like, "Oh, the left is gonna say that he was rambly, that he was out of focus." It's just like, yeah, no shit, because he was. Were you listening? It's like they want to they do their damnedest to jump ahead and like, because they expect these talking points to become to blossom out of left wing media, liberal media, and whatnot, because like it's based in reality, because and they know it, they understand it, but like they can't detract from their loyalism to Trump, and like I can't wait for all that to just dismantle itself as time goes on, for sure. I could be more happier with like the way that things are going, for sure.
Yeah, and I will say this. It reminds me, a couple years ago, I went on a DC trip when I was in congressional debate, and I believe it was the JSA tournament actually. And I remember picking up a local newspaper, and it's this really stupid face Trump, and it says rambling Trump says, "I'm not rambling." Like they're trying to get to a point where they can say to everyday people, "He wasn't rambling. He wasn't rambling," until to the point where they just look at it and they say, repeat it back to them. It's cyclical, and the thing
Yeah,
is, the only way these people can really justify that is with their political figure. They need Trump as that figure. And
yeah,
if he's defeated again, that is a sign for them that they cannot continue with this nonsense, with this propaganda, because
yeah.
they've lost the central point of their narrative, Donald Trump.
Yeah, they will shed that skin the moment it's convenient, especially the bigger of a blowout that it is. Because if Kamala only gets Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and just wins by a hair, there might still be wiggle room for them to stick to the same exact script. But the bigger of a blowout, the more they have to like face the writing on the wall, because the last three elections, including the midterms, like we're counting the midterms, it did not go good for them. There was no red wave. The last election was a referendum on Roe v. Wade being overturned, and the same's going to be. It's going to be the case this election as well. I put out a short today, that was clipped out of a recent stream we did, and it's like abortion is the Achilles heel of the Republican Party. They are the dog that caught the car, and they don't know what to do about it. They got what they wanted, and now they have to face the repercussions, because not all of America is on their
Yeah,
side, and
great point.
because they don't understand it. And like a good example of it is the IVF shit. They don't
Yep.
they don't they don't actually understand any of that at all. And like if they're so pro family, then why would they not do the research on what IVF is and how it's helped countless families across America, and the fact that
They're
they are attacking it, lumping it in with contraceptives, reproductive health in general, um, neonatal care, abortion in general. They they're just stupid. They're just stupid.
Yeah, they're picking the wrong fight. Prague, you got to
Yeah.
run, right?
Yeah, I gotta get going in a bit, but I wanted to
Yeah.
just say one final thing.
Sure.
First of all, thank you very much for having me on. It's always
Of
a pleasure to
course,
come
dude.
on here and talk about this. It's especially fun when we get to talk about Republicans shooting themselves in the electoral foot when they really should
Countless
have just
times.
listened to somebody with a political science degree or just
Yeah.
normal people. But I will say this one final thing: we don't have to settle for less.
Yes.
We can always push for change. We can always push for improvement so long as we are willing and able to look for opportunities to do so. Donald Trump will not be the end of this political fight. Politics is frustrating. It can
Yeah.
be stupid. It can be downright infuriating, but it is also a matter of public concern. It is a matter of the people deciding where they are going to go from here. And once this election is over, regardless of the outcome, I want people to remember that the fight continues on until we can seriously say to the people who come after us, we did our best to give you a good future. We did our best to serve not only ourselves as the American people, but you as our successors. And until we
Absolutely.
get to that point, until we are able to say that we actually did that, the fight does not end, and it cannot end with just Trump.
Right.
All right, you want to
Absolutely.
join us for a live watch of the debate on September 10th? I think it's a Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday, September 10th.
I'll let you know. That sounds like it would be absolutely wonderful. I just have to check
Yeah.
what my plan is going to be because I
All
would
right.
like to also see about my own. I haven't done reaction streams in a very long time, but I would
Yeah,
absolutely
we
love
should
that.
simulcast. We should just simulcast.
Oh, that would work out perfectly.
Yeah, that's what we
That'd be
do with
really cool.
StatPat does that. We'll talk to you about that off camera about how to do that because StatPat's a tech whiz with that shit.
Yeah,
All right.
once and before it gets to that point, I should have a DDR4 installed into my computer, and that'll solve a whole lot of problems.
Bro,
Honestly.
good to see you,
Um
man. You're the best.
yeah, thanks a bunch, Connor. We really appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure. Have a nice day, guys.
For sure, you too. Yeah, he's awesome.
Such a great guest. I love it.
Yeah.
I love
Uh,
it. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
been back. I realize actually he's been back. That's his third appearance because he filled in
Yeah.
for you a couple
Right.
of
When
weeks
when
ago.
I had to work. Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and not to mention, dude, we got the Democratic National Convention that starts next
I
week.
know. I'm gonna
Yeah.
live stream a lot during that.
Yeah,
I think I'm gonna try to get out as much content as I can.
yeah, I'm gonna discipline myself. I'm gonna try to get work done as early as possible, so that way I'm hoping because it goes on 4 days, I believe. I think we should try to stream like all 4 nights if you're up to it, and
I'm down for it. I'm down.
I'll even make sure that like if I work that I'm like not I'll just call out. I don't need to work those first 4 days, like Monday through Thursday. I think that's when the convention goes on. I think that'd be a blast. Like just cover all 4 nights.
Yeah.
I think that'd be really cool.
Did you have anything you wanted to say about the electoral college map?
Um,
Because you were shorting out back then, so I figured I'd give you a
yeah,
chance that we can wrap up with this and then. So my prediction I'll give you my prediction, then we'll work off of that. Okay.
sure.
This is actually my prediction right here. I don't think we'll actually win Florida.
No, probably
As
not.
much as I mean, as cool as that would be, we'll see. We got plenty of time to build that kind of momentum. Be
Maybe.
great. But this is it. 319, 219. That's what I see happening.
Yeah. Not sure about Nevada yet. So we might get like a 313, 225.
Right.
Um,
If she breaks 300 though, that's just golden.
No, yeah, yeah. Like hopefully, like I mean, if North Carolina stays strong, that would be great. Like I do think maybe like at minimum, we don't get North Carolina and Nevada, but we do get every other swing state needed, including Georgia and Arizona, and like even that would be just fan fucking tastic, honestly. um, it's so
So
encouraging
do
to
you have any?
see.
What's your prediction? So I'm saying this 319, 219. You're saying this is you. This is your prediction.
Yeah, Nevada goes red, but probably not by much. So North Carolina is actually polling better than Nevada right now. I kind of missed
Oh
that.
no.
It's not.
The colors don't matter. Don't read too much into the shades.
No. I'm asking like, did you guys look at the North Carolina
Oh
polls?
yeah, North Carolina, August 9th. It was by YouGov, and it had it at even. But then we had the
Okay.
Cook political report that came in, and I'll bring that back up in case you didn't get a chance to
Oh
talk to
yeah.
her about it.
So
So
she's
this
up
is
by
North
2.
Carolina.
Wow.
Harris is up by 2 in this one.
That's a
So
big deal. So yeah, no,
yeah,
that's possible.
I mean,
That is really
election night.
possible.
If it's election night, then you could, if these things happen, if
Hmm.
Georgia, Carolina, Virginia, Pennsylvania, the thing we got to check up on for next time is when do they start counting? Because some places you can start counting the beginning of election day
Hmm.
in terms of mail-ins, and some places you can't start counting until the end of election day, and then it
Yeah.
takes all the way into the wee hours of the morning of the next day to get it done.
Yeah, I was
But
in a little rural town out east for my primary job, and just outside the main market, because it's a town of like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 thousand. Like there's a an official ballot box for like ballot drop off and whatnot. So like it's like it's already it's time. The season's here. And people know because they're going to be driving past that all the time because we're outside the market. They know where and when to drop off their ballots. So yeah, that's. But I digress. It's um it's really encouraging at this point. Like for her to gain that much North Carolina after it was +8 for Trump is fucking wild to me. Because I wrote North Carolina off entirely. Um,
she's got all the
yeah,
momentum, man. She just got. If they kill it,
for
I've
real.
told you. I like I said, don't get excited and start to you still use
Yeah,
until you start to see fours and fives.
yeah,
And these fours and fives. This Nevada number, I'm really interested to see if that sticks. That's
yeah,
really
yeah,
surprising to me.
yeah. I mean,
But who cares?
given how like the Democratic Party there has gone more like Bernie esque, and I guess there's like a story a couple years back about like a takeover of the party and whatnot. Like the fact that it hasn't flipped more blue is a bit more surprising. But um, I mean, I think something like Las Vegas has just become a growing hub for people, I believe.
Yeah,
And like a lot of those people are more wealthy,
conservative.
yeah, and conservative, yeah.
They'll get
So
the
that
texture.
might be playing into it. I mean, there's really not much of a.
Who
I mean,
cares?
Nevada's just a barren
If she gets
place.
the Rust
It,
if she gets the Rust Belt sweep plus Carolina and Georgia and
hmm.
Arizona, that
Yeah,
is a huge night. That's as big of a win as
yeah,
Obama had.
yeah. Ultimately, well, I mean, because Obama, if I remember correctly, won Indiana and Iowa.
He did.
Yeah, which is crazy. But yeah, ultimately, yeah, Nevada is a little bit inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. So it's just an interesting anomaly for sure. But yeah, this is very encouraging. I couldn't be more hopeful and relieved for the future for sure.
All right. Well, I think we can probably wrap it up there.
Yeah,
Unless you got anything else, I'm good. We've been going for a little
that's pretty
over
much
hour
it.
15. I had all the way up until I got 5 viewers now, and
Yeah,
it
it's
was
been
up until
steady.
7 at one point. So
I've been
people are tuning in.
yeah, I've been on your stream this whole time. It peaked at 8 at one point.
Yep.
So that's hella cool. But
Nice.
yeah, I got nothing. I got nothing else.
All right.
Balls to the walls. Kamala Chameleon. I'm just
Cobra
throwing shit at the wall
Kai
right now.
punching past the target.
Yes.
Past it. Win
Yeah.
by a fortune. Win by a fortune.
Yes.
And
Go on the offense.
Stateless Patriot and I are reminding you to know the heart, but vote with the head. And you don't get change in America by asking nicely. We will see you next Monday.